마가에 굉장히
I support MAGA. Donald great again.
and 누구지? 갑자기 제가 이제 한국에 미국 왔는 이유도 미국 왔는 이유도 마찬가지로 이재명 정권이 이제 워낙 후속시키고 해가지고 좀 해야겠다.
여러분 안녕하세요. 자, 지금 밖에 계신 분들도 빨리 들어와 주시고요. 저희 곧 중요한 베스트를 위해 시작하겠습니다.
네.
자, 저희가 이번에 스페셜 호스트 그리고 패널 소개하기 전에 저희가 함께 연습을 하면 좋겠는데요. 피곤하시죠? 여기 올라오실 때 저희 앞에 있는 성조기 그 태극기 들고 이렇게 박수 치시면서 올라오실 때 흔들어 주시면 좋겠습니다. 보여주시면 좋아하시겠죠? 그렇죠?
감사합니다.
네. 이 시간에 이제 토크 콘서트 같은 시간 순간적으로 직접 레벨업 하고 우리의 브랜드를 위한 페스티벌입니다. 호스트는 마이클 원 전 미주중앙일보 사회정치 담당 기자이시고 라디오 코리아 보도국장도 역임하셨고 원영송의 진실정치 대표이십니다. 그리고 Ambassador 칼라샌즈 트럼프 1기 덴마크 대사이시고 현재 AFPI 미국 우선 정책연구소에서 외교정책 담당 선임연구원으로 활동하고 계십니다.
We want to give a warm welcome to our ambassador Carla Sands. She is a current CEO and businesswoman. She was the former U.S. ambassador to Denmark under President Trump, first term. Currently the vice chair or the chair of foreign policy of the API. I want to give a warm welcome.
박수 부탁드립니다.
Okay, you can come up here. You can come up.
칼라샌즈가 사실 트럼프의 진짜 최측근입니다. 네, 원영석 기자랑 눈인사를 했습니다.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Sands, to attend this event. It's so meaningful for all of us, especially in South Korea. The conservatives are being so suppressed right now, and they are looking for the United States to help them big time.
Thank you, Michael, for welcoming me, and for all of you South Korean patriots. God bless you, and God bless you in your effort.
Ambassador Sands, we met in February when we talked about Lee Jae-myung and the far left movement that's going on in South Korea. And you wrote a column in August, right before President Trump was having his meeting with Lee Jae-myung. What prompted you to write that column?
Because I was worried that South Korea would be lost to the pressure of the Chinese Communist Party and the takeover by communism in your democracy.
And before this meeting, about 10 days ago, Charlie Kirk passed away, and
no, he didn't pass away. He was assassinated.
Yeah, you're right. You were assassinated. I was doing my YouTube show, and I just couldn't believe it because Charlie Kirk was somebody, even though much younger than me, I looked up to. And
you look so young.
My body is pretty old. I feel it every day. I feel it every day. I have to roll my body. So I had a rule to never show my emotions, but I broke down during my show because I really felt that he was a future president.
Absolutely. He was a future U.S. president. Everyone thought so.
And so how should we learn from his life? Many South Koreans, you saw these vigils happening all over South Korea what should we learn from his life, and how should we move on from here and try to keep his spirit alive?
Michael, it's such an important question. This is such a shock to all of us who knew and loved Charlie Kirk, who met him or just watched him online or saw him speak to students. Charlie Kirk is the first Christian martyr in the history of the United States. Charlie Kirk is the first political assassination since 1968 in the United States. This is a turning point. To talk about his organization, it's a turning point for the United States and for the world. You saw the vigils all over the world. People's hearts yearn for freedom, but they're also yearning for God. He always talked about the Bible and quoted scripture to back up his arguments about freedom, about the Constitution, about the nature's laws, because they're God's laws. RFK Jr. talked at the memorial at the Kennedy Center last Sunday night, and he said his niece was packing to move to Europe to study, his 17-year-old niece. And she put a Bible in her suitcase. And her mom said, "Why are you putting a Bible in your suitcase?" And she said, "Mom, because I want to be like Charlie Kirk." Yes.
I think what's so shocking about his death was we've never seen somebody so unapologetically Christian.
No. Only people like Billy Graham, but not normal people, that aren't pastors. Charlie Kirk was not a pastor.
And I think because among all the pundits out there, like we see Ben Shapiro or Benny Johnston, but the reason why I respected Charlie Kirk the most was he was just unapologetically Christian, and he would just throw Bible verses at you. And there was so much to learn from him, and there's nobody else like him, and he's one of a kind. Do you think we can see the next Charlie Kirk? What's your opinion on that?
The next Charlie Kirk may be in this room right now. In fact, I'm calling out all the young men and women in this room that are watching online, and I'm asking you to rise up and be fearless and passionate about your beliefs, about what is right and true. Charlie brought light where there was darkness. Charlie brought truth where there is falsehood. You be Charlie Kirk. Let's have 10,000, 10 million Charlie Kirks rise up. Let's do it.
And right before his death, the last place he went to was, ironically, South Korea. He had an event there. And he was telling us to fight against CCP, communism.
Yes. He went there on purpose. He knew the duress that your people are under in South Korea. He understood, and that's why he went. He understood the importance of spreading this, a foreign policy. It's not just about the U.S., it's about our friends too.
So what should we do to keep his spirit alive? Is there like specific that you can advise us to do
Yes.
in the Korean American community?
So it's important to go to church. It's important to worship. But he didn't speak in church. He took his message to the people, where the people are, just like Jesus did. He went where the people are. He was in the mountains and by the lake.
So the rise of socialism, communism is something that most South Koreans are very worried about. And if you look at the Korean politics, they completely took over the whole system. The judiciary, the media, entertainment, everything, the presidency, parliament. In this kind of predicament situation that we're all facing in right now, that's why a lot of people are asking that the United States should help more actively. When I see a lot of Korean Americans here, even the past couple of days, they all ask me, when is America gonna do something? And can you answer to that question?
I sympathize with you. In the United States, the left the Marxists have taken over every institution. It's not just South Korea, it's worldwide. We have been so nice and so asleep at the switch. We have been in our churches and not in the community and watching over these institutions. It's within our country and it's the international institutions. Both we have allowed the Marxists to take over. We have been too nice. We need to model Jesus, but we need to fight to save our countries and save the globe from worldwide communism for our children and for our children's children.
It seems like communist nations, when they try to brainwash people, they attack churches, Christianity. And in South Korea recently we had Pastor Son Young-bo who got arrested. So we're just voicing his opinion. And we have some speakers here that's also very scared of their, not, I wouldn't say scared, they're not scared, but they're on the hit list, so to speak, they're the blacklist. Can you talk about that?
I sympathize with your pastors that they are trying to jail and that they are suppressing their freedom of speech. This is part of the globalist and the Marxist plan to silence the voices, because when young people hear the truth and the good news from conservatives, from Christians, they generally like it. So they don't want them to hear this. And if you think about what happened during COVID, they arrested pastors also in Canada, in the United States. They sued pastors if they would open their churches. So it was an attempt to globalize and take over globally the world and take our freedoms away. And we must fight against this in our nations and with the international organizations. We have to fight to win. And so wherever you have influence, whether it's speaking to the media, talking to your friends, if you're on a board, speaking out, do not hide your voice. Pray for guidance, pray for strength, and then be bold. Be bold and think about how Charlie was out and bold, out in front. We have to be informed and then share the good news, but with strength.
Under the Biden administration, I felt that way too. We couldn't voice our opinion. YouTube was suppressing a lot of conservatives.
They banned President Trump from Twitter. Do you remember? They banned him from Facebook. They took him down and silenced a sitting U.S. president's voice, and these were American companies.
Do you think if President Trump would not have come back, that it would have been at a point of no return, that America would have probably become a socialist nation as well?
If President Trump had not won, if Kamala Harris was president today, I'm not sure we would be safe to meet here today openly. And if Elon Musk had not bought Twitter, I don't think any of us would have a voice on social media. His exposure with the Twitter files, the government colluding with the social media companies, broke the dam. Without those things happening, I do think that we would have lost the majority of our freedoms. So we are very blessed. President Trump won and Elon Musk bought Twitter.
So do you think the same thing can happen in South Korea, that the conservatives can rally around and beat what's happening right now in South Korea with against socialism and communism?
How badly do you want to win?
How badly do you want to win? 네? 얼마나 이기고 싶습니까?
Do not forget, Donald Trump is a rich man, a billionaire. The left tried to put him in prison for 700 years. The left tried to bankrupt him. The left tried to imprison his children. The left tried to take his companies away from him. The left raided his home. a former U.S. president, unprecedented. They have no bounds. You have to fight, and it will not be easy. But pray, and then fight, fight, fight.
So I think the reason why President Trump made such a miraculous comeback was because President Trump is also one of a kind. We said Charlie Kirk is one of a kind. There's going to be nobody like him. And I do believe President Trump, I personally put him along the greats of George Washington, Abraham
100%.
Lincoln, and President Trump. That's how I believe are the greatest American presidents in history. And in South Korea, I hear this a lot from the conservatives who I talked with. I talked with them continuously, and what they told me was they need to find a leader like that, like Trump. And that's the biggest missing part.
God gives his anointing to the willing. Just say to him, Lord, call me. I believe if you will pray every morning that the Lord shows you his perfect will for you, if you live in his will, every day there will be an incremental step. We can all be Charlie Kirk with our abilities. God gave each one of you gifts. Use them. Don't hide them. Be bold. There's the verse, be not afraid. Be not afraid. Remember, the joy of the Lord is our strength. Charlie was a happy warrior.
So I wanted to ask you, do you see some parallels between what has been going on in the United States and now we're pretty happy here? The conservatives are happy since Trump
They better not get sloppy and lazy while they're happy, because anger drives politics in the U.S. Not happy.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to lose the midterms.
But we Republicans have the House and the Senate, both chambers, and also the judiciary in the U.S. Supreme Court 6-3.
Some judges.
Some judges, yeah. So do you see the similarities what's going on in South Korea? It seems like they're under Biden. While they're being under Lee Jae-myung, it's pretty much what we went through the past 4 years. And do you have any good advice and encouraging words for our audience here and also for all the viewers out there?
We got through the dark days of the Biden administration with hope and working hard and organizing and trying to clean up the elections and fighting for fair elections that are not dirty elections. And we're still working on that. We're suing in the court to clean up voter rolls. We're suing so that we're trying to do a new census so that illegal immigrants aren't counted in these districts, which would be very helpful. So if you will use every legal means available to you, turn over every stone for every advantage, because the left is. Every day they are working hard to defeat you in your country, just like here. The organization doesn't change. It's the same worldwide.
And so one of the most questions that people asked me was, how come President Trump and the Republican Party align and help more of the People Power Party, the Conservative Party in South Korea? How come the United States doesn't voice out their support for the Conservative Party in South Korea? Can you elaborate?
Sometimes the government doesn't understand everything that's happening in a party. So it's important to write about it if parties are compromised. If the CCP has control of a party, the government should be told, the US government, so that the diplomats and the White House understand the situation. They don't always know until sometime down the road. Information isn't always communicated instantaneously. So it's important to talk about it in the media, but also reporting, if you're a diplomat, reporting that out.
And Ambassador Sands, I know that you're very much interested about the voter fraud issue. President Trump still talks about it, that the 2020 election was rigged. I personally believe that it was rigged, especially in the swing states when they stopped the vote count and et cetera, and like issues with Smartmatic and Dominion and issues about that. So South Korea has also, the conservatives have been raising these issues about voter fraud, rampant voter fraud, and election integrity issues. But these people, like pretty much all the people around here, I think we believe voter fraud did happen. It has been happening for Korea for quite a while. But we are labeled like conspiracy theorists. You know, all the things that President Trump.
So were we.
So how can we overcome it? I believe that the only way that this can be uncovered, because the judiciary system is completely compromised in South Korea. The Constitutional Court, the Supreme Court, they're all compromised. And they go hand in hand with the National Election Committee in South Korea. So a lot of South Koreans, we believe the only way for this to be completely wide open is for the United States to be involved, because there's an angle of United States too. There was some reports that back in 2020 in Phoenix, Arizona, that there was a Korean airline that was full with Biden ballots. And there was also reports by the Reuters in 2021 that China was involved in making fake driver's licenses, like 18,000 driver's licenses. And one of the countries that was also might have been involved was South Korea. And can you elaborate on that?
So I knew about the Chinese-made fake driver's licenses to be able to vote in the 2020 election. I did not know about the South Korean driver's licenses to also help steal the 2020 election, but I did know about the postman. There was a post office driver, and he had boxes of ballots in the back of his postman's, truck, and they came from New York to Pennsylvania, and they were stuffing the ballots in the boxes in Pennsylvania. So, and we saw in the US in 2020 all those flat ballots that had never been folded. We saw ballots received before they were sent. We saw the same images in South Korea with the flat, unfolded mail-in ballots. Well, we all know it's impossible. So President Trump is pressing to have paper ballots, same-day voting. The U.S. elections are not a national issue. They're a states' rights issue. But there may be a way, he may find a legal mechanism to make this happen. If he does, our elections will be much cleaner. He wants voter ID, same-day voting, paper ballots, unless you are physically unable to get to the polls.
So, President Donald Trump, he does know about these issues. I'm wondering, I think Tulsi Gabbard, DNI Director Tulsi Gabbard, last month, she mentioned about these election integrity issues. Is she focused currently on the domestic election issues right now, what's happening in America? Or is she also trying to uncover what has been happening about nations that has been very fishy, so to speak, like CCP or Venezuela, or these nations that have been, I think Venezuela, they actually made Smartmatic there. Is President Trump focusing on the international election as well? That's what I want to ask you.
So I don't know what he focuses on principally, but I know he's aware of what's happened in South Korea, in Venezuela, in the different countries where the left has control of the elections and the elections aren't clean. Every country gets a rating for how clean the elections are. And using paper ballots, I think it was it Taiwan? France for sure has one-day voting, paper ballots, and they hand count them, and they have done studies, and most of the world does not use mail-in ballots because they know that they are corrupt. And that was found when they did studies into this, and that's why most of the EU, I think maybe all of the EU, does paper ballots and doesn't use machines. I don't believe most of the countries in the EU use machines. So how do we clean our elections? We get rid of those machines and we go to paper ballots. And for polling, 85% of the Americans, so this is across the board, they want clean elections. Both sides of the aisle, Democrat and Republican, they want clean elections. So this is a winning issue.
And do you know the election expert named Patrick Byrne? I know I'm asking you a question that I didn't hear, but Patrick Byrne, he mentioned about Venezuela being the mecca of the entire international election voter fraud cartel. And according to him, that Venezuela has been, so Smartmatic has been made by Venezuela, and they were involved in 73 nations and has been tampering with the results for the past 20 years. Have you ever heard of these kind of reports?
I have. I haven't focused on Patrick Byrne and his work, but I have read a little bit about it. And there's only so much you can study and be an expert in, but I think that there is concern about these machines, especially when usually the password is left 1, 2, 3, 4, and we can see the tampering, whether it's South Korea ballots where the boxes have been tampered, the machines opened and tampered. We've seen the video, both U.S. and South Korea, with them going in and messing with the memory sticks. So there's all kinds of things that people that want to cheat can do, and the conservatives have been so nice. We've just let it happen. So we have to stop it. So you fight, fight, fight.
So we South Koreans, we believe that America is our best friend.
We agree.
Right. And what I heard last night, I heard something shocking. He was an Israeli lobbyist. We just talked back and forth, and then what he told me was, yeah, I don't see you guys. I haven't seen you guys for the past 2-3 decades. So what he said was he has never seen a Korean, American or a Korean, fighting for their cause in America, in Washington, D.C.
For their own cause?
For South Korea's conservative cause. And I wanted to ask you, like, I think a lot of South Koreans don't know how to make inroads. It seems like countries like Israel or even Japan, China, they have inroads. He told me that, the Israeli lobbyist, he told me, I see every other country, but South Korea, we have none. And it was kind of shocking for me to hear that. Ambassador, have you not seen any like South Korean, people who are fighting for South Korean cause?
So, being affiliated with America First Policy Institute, I have been approached by more Japanese trade people, and certainly I've heard from Israeli people advocating for their issues. But I'm happy to say that this group and Jisang and so many of the leadership, Michael, have been very active. So, but kind of on the outside. So I think there is more connectivity that could be achieved, but I would say it's different, but it's a kind of softer power. Do you understand?
Yes, because we were pretty much, speaking frankly, and what he said is, Israel, for instance, was working for decades with America.
For decades.
Yeah, for decades. But what he said was he doesn't even feel anything from South Korea. Like, he was supposed to meet some South Koreans, but he never had the chance. He talked to a lot of Japanese or Chinese. So what he told me was point blank, that you guys gotta just start from scratch. That you can't just hope everything shifts all of a sudden. That I think a lot of people here wishes that President Trump says, like publicly, like put out a tweet saying, voter fraud is rampant in South Korea, or Lee Jae-myung is a fake president. But what he told me, what he advised me, was that is not the way to go, that you have to go step by step.
So I'm not going to tell South Korean businessmen to hire a lobbyist, but there is something to it. And I think that starting from scratch and building the business relationships. I know that there's investment that's going to be invested in the US from South Korea. That will be a big bridge builder, because then you're working with all the government departments and the White House and business people, and that creates really strong ties that I don't think can be broken. When it's strong trade, there's a definite incentive to have a close relationship, as you can see with us and Israel.
I think one of the biggest reasons why in South Korea we don't have any inroads is because all the media in South Korea, like 조선일보, 중앙일보, 동아일보, KBS, MBC, SBS, all these major networks, and even the Jongpyeon channel, like TV Joseon, they're all or JTBC, on a minute basis, they're so busy bashing Trump. I can honestly say, busy bashing Trump or anything Republican, anything conservative. It has been happening for decades. I mean,
how did they like George Bush?
I don't think they liked him that much. I think they're more pro-Democrat all the time, more pro-Bill
Typical leftist media, right?
Yeah, and the problem is because the mainstream media here on the States, they are so left-wing, with New York Times, WAPO, CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, they're so heavily, I mean, you've never seen a major newspaper ever endorse a Republican Party. Like Washington Post never endorsed a Republican presidential candidate.
Although they didn't endorse Kamala Harris in the last election. So there is something happening, there is a shift changing, because President Trump is holding these media companies to the law. And there's a law for US broadcasters. They have to be a public service or to the public good. So when they start bashing and saying untrue things, think of The View, if you've ever seen it, or Jimmy Kimmel, who was just, certainly suspended, and I don't know how his future will go with the channels, but when you see what happens, because they're holding them accountable, we have someone at the FCC named Brandon Carr, who is going to hold them to the law and not let people cheat. So in South Korea, if you have a position of power, hold everyone, not just the left, but hold everyone to the law. And then you can begin to stop the cheating, stop whatever they're doing that is unfair or illegal or, say, unethical.
And I think the corporations in South Korea is also brainwashed because of the media, like Hyundai, Kia. We have these huge, big corporations like LG, Samsung. And if you look at the donor direction, it's like 97% it was Kamala over Trump. And I think this is a huge problem. I do see the lobbying happen on the other side. Democratic side. I think probably in a way that they're probably more diligent than us. I just don't know. I mean, is there any advice that you want to give all of us, every single one of us?
Well, Michael, you just said it. Why aren't we being diligent? Where are our lobbyists in our companies on, the lobbyists lobbying the conservatives? Let's make those relationships. If you're a young person and you're working for a company, start that. Start working on that. Let's build those bridges and build those ties, because we know that conservative ideas lead to prosperity, and communism leads to devastation, it leads to confiscation, it leads to poverty, and it leads to over 100 million people being killed, assassinated under communism. Look at Venezuela. Venezuela was the richest country in South America, and what happened? The socialists took over, and now look at Venezuela. It's devastated. No good company wants to invest there. It's not safe. You don't want to become Venezuela. We don't want to become Venezuela. Venezuela is where we were heading under Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris. South Korea could be on the same path. Don't let it happen. Fight against it. Say, determine you will not become Venezuela.
So it's almost like a miracle. We remember when President Trump first ran for office, June 16th of 2015, and all the media was against him, right? Every single one, including, I don't think even Fox News was even that gung-ho about him in the first place, but how do you think Trumpism took over America? What even with all the media and the establishment and the big tech so against President Trump, what was his power to convince American people to go with him?
Well, first of all, let's not forget, President Trump was an outsider. He was a billionaire from Queens. He has an accent. He's not one of the fancy people. He was a celebrity. He had the most popular television show on TV. And he was a builder. He was a brand maker. He was an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. So a unique person. But we don't all have to be Donald Trump to be leaders. What his secret sauce was, is he cared about the people. The great middle class in America. When I was a kid, a dad could work a job, one job, and afford to buy a house, get married, raise a family, and send the kids to school and take a vacation every year. One salary. Today, both the husband and wife are working. They're both probably working in a fulfillment center or somewhere that doesn't have upward mobility. They're probably renting or in an apartment, and they're struggling just to make ends meet every month. The American dream is that the middle class can thrive and flourish and have those little extras, and that their kids can do better than they did. That's the American dream. Donald Trump believes in that dream. And in his first administration, he increased the salary of the least educated more than any other people in our country and any other modern presidency. This administration, he's promising the average family will make up to $13,000 more a year. That $13,000 is a lot for a middle-class family. America, we are already rich just being born in America because it's a blessed land and we have abundance. But that big middle class, our majority of Americans deserve to have a shot that their kids can live a better life with more than they had. So he's restoring that American dream. And the first thing he did to do that is his one big beautiful bill. Tax reform. Regulation decreasing, special carve-outs so that if you're old or you're getting tips, you're working overtime in your job, you don't have to pay taxes. So he is fighting so that the middle class can do better. South Korea needs a leader that can do the same thing for your middle class. I want to say one more thing. I was with some of your South Korean friends recently, and they told me a shocking statistic. They told me that South Koreans are only having less than one child per couple, 0.7%. Please get married. Have children. My greatest joy in my life was raising my dear beloved daughter and watching her grow and talking to her. Please don't miss that if you don't have to. Now, some people, God calls you to a different calling. But if you can, don't only focus on your career. Marry. Have a family. It is the greatest, most fulfilling joy.
So, Ambassador Sands, we all know the preview of the meeting between President Trump and Lee Jae-myung. So, what was your assessment after the meeting? What was your takeaway?
Well, my take was it was a good meeting. President Trump spoke frankly to your leader, and he said, I hear there's some attack on Christians, some problems with the churches. You went into my base, the American base, did some stuff, oppression, loss of freedom of speech. Well, your leader kind of tapped him on, right? Tapped him along, and then said other things in the South Korean press. You may feel like he's illegitimate, but this is the leader that President Trump has to deal with every day in your country. So he is going to work with him so that we have good trade and good relations. He will have a good relationship with every world leader, and that's how it should be. But I hope you have a better election next time.
But I think the frustration sits with a lot of South Koreans here because we are so worried about, like we already talked about, the election integrity issue with voter fraud so rampant. How can we even overcome this? I know President Trump used that too big to rig. It worked. You do believe last year the left still tried to do something, right, against President Trump?
They did, but we had, on the Republican side, we had the chairman of the Republican National Committee, a man named Michael Watley. And he hired the toughest, meanest lawyers he could find, and he put them in every single swing state where they were counting the ballots, and they had a war room. And in that war room, they had rapid response. So if there was a problem at a voting place, immediate communication, the lawyers went and they sent security after it, and they got after it, because we saw in 2020, kind of like your last election, the things that happened. I was working in Denmark as the US ambassador, and I watched in real time in Philadelphia how they turned away election officials and even the top attorneys sent specifically to secure that election. They put cardboard up over the windows so you couldn't see them stealing and changing the ballots. We saw the videos of pulling out boxes and suitcases of ballots, vans arriving in underground parking lots in the middle of the night when they stopped counting, and unloading boxes and boxes of ballots to steal that election. You have to fight preemptively. When they're elected, it's too late. Make a plan now. Start to fight now for the next time. And do not leave any stone unturned. For every single action you can take, you have to be, wise like a serpent.
So when President Trump put out that words on his Truth Social about purge and revolution, what do you think he meant by revolution? Do you think he was saying that there's a left-wing revolution? What was your thought when he used those terms? Were you surprised by it when he used it? It took a lot of us by surprise, because President Trump never mentioned about South Korea, and all of a sudden he threw that. And then he also said that we can't even do business with this kind of nation because they were raiding churches, arresting pastors.
You know, I don't know what's happening behind closed doors at the White House regarding this situation. I don't know what's happening diplomatically, but President Trump is aware of what is going on, certainly. And the more you can highlight what is going on, bring it to light, don't leave anything in the dark. When they're doing illegal activity, expose it. Expose what the government is doing, the oppression of Christians, of the churches, free speech, deplatforming YouTubers or people on other social media platforms. So fight for every single thing. There is nothing too small to highlight it and try to bring it to the attention of not just the United States, but every good nation that you have a relationship with. Because there can be diplomatic pressure from other democracies as well. It shouldn't just be the US. Sync up with Japanese conservatives, people in the region that think like you do. Become a larger bloc and you'll have a bigger voice. You can regionalize issues.
So I think if it wasn't for President Trump, even Americans would not have been alerted about China. President Trump Trump talked about it even like decades ago that we have to slap tariffs to China. We can't just let this slide by. All the manufacturing jobs are being lost to China. Right now as we speak, do you think President Trump's tariff policy is working against China?
Well, first of all, I want to talk about the China issue. So I talked about the great middle class in America and how they're not doing as well now as they did when I was a young woman. It was because of those bad trade deals and because the government, the federal US government and the state governments encouraged business owners to send those jobs and those factories to Asia. It was Korea, Taiwan, and then it was China, like over the decades. And I saw the trade deals. The New York Times would publish a lot of information about the trade deals 30 years ago, and I was horrified. And that is the reason that our middle class hollowed out and our towns emptied out, because those factories went away. They went ultimately to China. And President Trump was very acutely aware of this. Thank God he was elected, because just because people know doesn't mean something is done about it, right? You have to focus on it, and he has been hyper-focused. Remember in 2015, 2016, he'd say, China. And people would laugh, but they started to understand, because the average person did not know. The tariffs are working. I don't know what the Supreme Court is going to do, because now they're being challenged. But President Trump is trying to end the Ukraine-Russia war. And the way he wants to do it is put pressure on Putin, because China's funding his war. They're aiding Russia. If China stopped funding and aiding Russia today, the war would stop tomorrow. So President Trump has asked the EU, please put 100% tariffs on China and India until it stops. He said, if you do it, we'll do it, and then the war ends. So yes, that's a good step. The problem, and he's already put the tariffs on India, but he's waiting for Europe to partner with him on this. Europe should. But I just talked to one of the diplomats this week, and he said, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that we're ready to put big tariffs on China, because we think you'll take advantage of it. No, he just wants to end the war.
And you do believe that President Trump can essentially end the war between
I don't think the United States can end the war alone, no. I think we need our partners to put more pressure. The American people do not want to fund this war. We do not want our blood and treasure going to Ukraine. This is an old regional conflict. It's not our war. It's Europe's war.
Even among the MAGA movement, so I talk with a lot of them. You know, MAGA people have differences of opinion. And regarding Ukraine, I think a lot of people have been mentioning what happened in 2014 during the Euromaidan situation, that Ukraine used to be a pro-Russia government, but under Obama, by using CIA tactics or what have you, brought down the pro-Russia government, and then it brought this chaos and legitimized Putin to attack. And not just that, I heard it from another diplomat who said the Trump-Russia collusion thing also angered Putin, and we also have like a Ukrainian ambassador diplomats who wrote columns on Washington Post and other mainstream sources about Russia colluding with Trump, and this also triggered the war. What's your thought on that?
Can you believe what the US government was doing around the world when the USAID was exposed? Americans are so ashamed and appalled at what our government and our tax dollars was funding. Overthrowing governments? What? Victoria Nuland, if any of you saw what she did and heard her words, yes, they installed a puppet and took down the pro-Russian leadership in Ukraine. yes, the blood is on their hands.
I think, and Ukraine is always ranked like one of the most corrupt nations in the
It's
world.
still one of the most corrupt.
But now the media is kind of portraying them like one of our biggest allies. And so should we root for Ukraine more or Russia more? Yeah, this is a big question.
So when I was serving in Denmark, Ukrainians were voted the sexiest people in the world. I'm serious. I don't know. I think that we need to have a good relationship with every nation, but nations should not be invading other nations. But I also know, and I'm not pro-Russia, but I will tell you, the Russian people are great people. Just like the Chinese people, not the CCP, the Chinese people are great people. They deserve to have a great government that cares about them and doesn't oppress them and disappear them and kill them and incarcerate them. So, I think that if China or Russia was on our southern border, we would do something. And so I think that what they did in 2014, and then the threat of NATO welcoming Ukraine, I mean, we wouldn't allow an enemy alliance on our border. So I don't side with Russia, but I will say I do understand their concern about having an enemy, a perceived enemy, on their border. They didn't like it.
It was like pushing Putin around. Like, what are you gonna do about it? It was like the NATO egging him.
Maybe they wanted another forever war. Some companies make a lot of money with those forever wars, right?
And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the pandemic situation because President Trump raised those issues about even Operation Warp Speed. President Trump always prided about how he, when we were so oppressed by these lockdowns. I'm from California, so I felt it, and I even considered leaving California because of that, because they were mandating vaccine, and I dodged all of those, and gladly I'm not vaccinated.
God bless you.
Yeah, so it's Dr. Fauci and even the push of these vaccines, and we see a lot of these vaccine injuries, like, for instance, my former boss, editor-in-chief, he passed away after getting his second Moderna. My friend's mom took the second Moderna shot and passed away the next week. And I thought President Trump would not touch this because he thought that it was one of his political assets, the Operation Warp Speed, to come up with this vaccine within 8-9 months. I do give him credit that because of the vaccines, it did open up our economy. But I think there has been a lot of unintended or quote-unquote intended consequences. What say you?
This is so unbelievable. RFK Jr. wrote a book about Dr. Fauci, and it sounds as if Joe Biden did not sign Dr. Fauci's pardon, the preemptive pardon. So I think that we should have hearings, and it looks like he lied. I saw his email that he sent where he, was lying, and it looks like he was benefiting. He's a rich man, but he's been a public servant. How's that happen? So I'm what a blessing RFK Jr. is the head of HHS. I can't even tell you how encouraged I am. He also loves the people. They just passed, I think today, a ruling that the COVID shot is not recommended. Hallelujah, the COVID shot's not recommended. It's unbelievable what they did to the world. This was an attempt by globalist organizations, the World Economic Forum, the WHO, to create global communism. That's why they locked everybody down. This was like a bad flu that hit really old people. And in America, rather than doing what they did in India, giving things like ivermectin and inexpensive, what's that?
Hydroxychloroquine.
And hydroxychloroquine, rather than giving prophylactics, they banned the prophylactics and used very expensive, the the so-called vaccines, not really vaccines, right? They're not. They change your RNA and your DNA, but and then using expensive remdesivir, which the nickname is remdesivir, as you know, and then putting people on ventilators. And so between those, that deathly cocktail, here, Sweden never closed down. Denmark, the schools were open where I was in 3 weeks. People were so happy to come work in Denmark at my embassy and not be in Washington, D.C. because it was locked down. Our restaurants opened within a few months and our embassy operated normally, but there were places where nothing moved for a long time. And it was unnecessary. We needed to protect the old people, right? Make sure we kept them out of the public place, but the children and young adults should have been out. There should not have been, I mean, Sweden did it right, I think. Ultimately, they had a lower death rate, I think, than any other country. They stayed, in Western Europe, they stayed open. So it was, I believe, an attempt to take every liberty that we have away from us. And that's why we must not sign on to the WHO agreement that they have a right to police your country and to put you, in a place if you don't comply and to force you to have a vaccine of any kind. That's a violation of your personal body, your temple. And we must make sure that we do not comply and that we defeat this globalist agenda, because this would be life living under Chinese communist regime worldwide. And the Chinese Communist Party has control of the WHO. It's run by a guy named Tedros. He is their man at the WHO, even though the US government has, before President Trump, sent about $500 million a year to the WHO. China contributes historically 40-50 million a year. They have control of it, and they have many points of control at the UN, and they're attempting to write laws into international relations and laws that are with Chinese characteristics. So they're attempting to take over control of the world, and we must defeat that.
WHO, because of their pressure, a lot of South Koreans also felt pressure to be vaccinated, and I have a lot of friends who are suffering from these vaccine injuries. But we go back to CCP, how influential they were on WHO, even though America gives them more money. I think it just came out today that President Trump will have a meeting with Xi Jinping in South Korea, Gyeongju, at APEC event. What's your thought on that? What do you predict would come out of it?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy that President Trump is meeting with Prime Minister or Premier Xi. Was that?
Dictator?
Yes. No, he is. But I'm glad they're meeting, because he has to deal with the leader that's in place. And he has a good relationship with him, as he should. They just got a deal done, I think, in TikTok. So all you young people that are on TikTok, it's going to be a safer TikTok in the US. Well, that's good. But I'd like to see our TikTok like Chinese TikTok, which is educational and expands our horizons and helps our young people be successful.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the dangers about TikTok is, President Trump talked about, because if it wasn't for TikTok, I wouldn't have won the youth votes. I think it did help President Trump, but also I think a lot of youth were corrupted by these transgenderism, a lot of these LGBTQ plus indoctrination. And I think it's actually happening in the Korean American community. I think a lot of people here might not know, because I, as a reporter, reported about this a couple years back, about one of the Korean institutes. I went there, and the principal there told me that the teenage kids, these are all Korean American kids, that the number one biggest issue for them was LGBTQ plus issue, that they don't know whether they're a boy or a girl or a man or a woman. And there were some students who said that they're 1 week a boy, like another crazy what these kids are being indoctrinated about, and it's so sad. And I'm talking about this.
Those teachers, and those people around those kids should be put in prison for what they're doing to their children. That's child abuse and sexual predation. Sexual predation is illegal.
I'm talking about this is because I think the danger is out there. You see a lot of transgenders having this hatred towards specifically Christians, and that's what I think happened to Charlie Kirk, the great Charlie Kirk. Tyler Robinson, apparently his boyfriend was transitioning into a girl, and this individual was completely into like furry culture. I mean, this is another odd situation that most of the parents don't know about. So I worry about this. This isn't just one single case. We had another Texas that's also a transgender towards
Many
Christian
shooters.
hate crime. So this is hate crime, in my opinion. Can you touch upon this, and how can we solve this problem? Because I do think that this is getting bigger and bigger, this issue.
This is like end of empire stuff, right? Do you remember how corrupt it was at the end of the Roman Empire, the end of the Greek Empire? You know, very, very strange and loose, and a lot of sexual weird stuff went on. This is when civilizations are so rich and they turn their back on God, and they've got all this free time. You know the old saying? I mean, it is an old saying, but idle hands are the devil's workshop. That's why we should be, you know, spending time on things that are good for our mind, good for our body. That's why I love President Trump's administration, where we have RFK Jr. saying we're going to be healthy, get off our devices, get outside and walk, we're going to eat healthy food, we're going to think healthy thoughts. And they talk about this, they talk openly about this, because what you think about and what you do is where you end up. So if you're looking at weirdo videos, your mind is going to end up there. So if it's on TikTok, or it's on social media, or it's in the school where the teachers are, you know, showing kids stuff that they shouldn't see, that stuff pollutes the mind, and what you think about is what you become. So I think that what the Trump administration is doing is really making a big U-turn for our country. RFK Jr. said not that long ago to me, our country, in order to save it, must have a spiritual revival. This is the first administration that I can remember in my lifetime where the administration, the heads of these departments, the cabinet members, pray together. They have worship services together. They are focused on God and godliness. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to do everything perfectly. They're not. But they're purposing to deliver God's will and God's intention in our country. It's unbelievable, and we are so blessed.
And what's funny about that is what I heard was Europe rejected this idea. Supposedly they're the more liberal side of the Western world. But why in America this thing just spread like wildfire? A lot of parents didn't even know about it, and a lot of Korean American parents didn't know about it up until the pandemic, when they got to see what they're learning. The textbooks, the sex education books, how they engage in like same-sex acts, and it's just
porn in schools. They put porn in our schools, and the parents didn't know until COVID hit, and the kids were in class, you know, in the home, and the parents are seeing this garbage. The teachers, the institutions have been taken over by the left, and by, I would just say in many cases, by evildoers. They're doing evil in our institutions. It's in our schools. Our teachers are owned by the left. Most are from the left. In the colleges, what is it? 95% of the instructors are left in most universities. It depends. In sociology, it's like 100%. In the sciences, it's, you know, maybe 10% or 15% are not hard left. And these are Marxists. They are determined to turn the children into little communist revolutionaries and overthrow the United States government, the great hope for the world for freedom. So we have to fight back. President Trump and Linda McMahon, his education secretary, are working on this. But it is a generational fight. We cannot forget, President Reagan said that freedom doesn't pass on in the blood from one generation to the next. It has to be fought for every single generation. And that's why those of us who are mature in this room are fighting now. But those of you who are young, the fight is passing to you. Be strong and courageous and fight. It's the education, it's the culture, it's the media, it's the press. I mean, in every way, we have to take these organizations, these institutions back. That's the number one goal that we should have, is to put conservatives in every single position of power, because we know that we're fair-minded. We'll share ideas, but the left does not. They have one way, and that's revolutionary communism, and it's here in the United States today.
Yeah.
So what that principal told me was 30% of her students were all LGBTQ+.
They're confused because they've been brainwashed. Kids don't know anything. They have, Rush Limbaugh used to say, they are young skulls full of mush. They don't know right from wrong. We teach them right from wrong. We teach them godly ways, and that God made man and made woman. President Trump knows this, your president knows this, and your prime minister, so we have to make sure we hold our leaders accountable.
Exactly. But the sad part is none of the parents know it. The parents don't know it. I mean, because she promised to the students that she wouldn't. So I think there's going to be a huge reckoning among the Korean American family. I think it very much worries me. Ambassador Sands, I wanted to ask you about globalism. You know, globalism, it sounds good. Many people thought that we're supposed to support it. What is your thought about globalism and the danger of globalism? Can you talk about that?
Sure. So we can see around the world an attempt by the globalist organizations, whichever one they are, the UN, the World Economic Forum, that they want to dissolve sovereign borders and have a kind of global government. And they want immigration to be uncontrolled. Immigrate, no borders, let everyone in, and dissolve or dilute the cultures of each country. And the goal is to just basically do away with the rights of the people in each country and the laws that have been passed, and have a global communist regime. And they're making a lot of progress, right? The Agenda 2030, the UN Agenda 2030, what's happening, when you see the fires in the Pacific Palisades and Gavin Newsom saying, we're gonna put low-income housing in the Pacific Palisades, one of the most beautiful and expensive places to live in the world, that is Agenda 2030. They don't want any safe neighborhoods. They want low-income housing in every neighborhood. It's part of the agenda. I went to Cirque du Soleil last night, and it looked like the agenda, the UN Sustainable Goals, another part of communism, the sustainable goals, it looked like up above. And all of the people, the grips, the people working to help the production, they were dressed in Mao jackets and Mao hats. It's out of Quebec, Canada, but clearly this is an implementation of just more images of globalism so that we can accept it. And we have to protect our cultures, our beautiful culture. The beautiful culture of South Korea is precious. Fight for it, preserve it, celebrate it. Yes, every country deserves to have that and to have it preserved. You should not import foreign workers. Have babies, grow your economy internally if you can. It's a much better way than bringing people in that don't share your culture and your values. We are facing this today in the United States, but the UK, Sweden, they are really suffering. France, Belgium, Germany, those countries are being overridden and they're losing their culture, and the government is not protecting the citizens from people that don't share their values. So I think it's important. My goal is that we would have good relations with sovereign nations, that we protect our border and our culture, that we have strong economies with inexpensive energy, hopefully domestic. If you can't get it domestically, buy it from a friend. I hope that we can also have strong defenses. We have a shared defense, South Korea and the US. This is how we have good friends and strong alliances.
This is going to be my last question, and then we're going to open the floor to questions from the audience. So what do you predict will happen between the trade deal with South Korea and the United States? And President Trump talked about it the next day that he had some issues with South Korea during the cabinet meeting, that they were trying to do something, but we're going to do it our way. So that's pretty much what he was saying. How do you think it's going to play out?
Well, I think President Trump expects the trade deals to go forward that they signed. And I think that they were not fully formed, but I think they were in a sort of working progress, right? It takes a long time to really get the nitty-gritty details worked out. I mean, all the countries of the world, we're renegotiating our trade to get fair trade. The United States has been like the country that laid on its back and said, walk all over me while we do trade. Because we had almost no tariffs and other countries had high tariffs on our goods. So our goods couldn't compete on a level playing field. That's not fair. So President Trump said that's another reason our working people in the United States aren't flourishing, why jobs left, because we couldn't compete. Because we are at fault. The United States, we made bad trade deals. So now he's making good trade deals. I think he will get to a good place with South Korea. I think we will probably build ships with South Korean companies right here in the United States. I suspect we will make steel with great South Korean companies right here in the United States. We don't want steel dumped in our country. We're not going to take transshipped steel that's been dumped either. And I think that we will have more trade because of President Trump. And we've got some agricultural goods we'd love to sell to South Korea. So I think we'll get to a good place.
Come on, let's go and give another big round of applause.
자, 질문, 저기 카나 대사님한테 질문 드리실 분. 여기, 네.
For the both of you, I enjoy your conversations. Thanks so much, Mr. Spencer, for being with us tonight. And I want to recall the term you mentioned already that President Trump talked to the face of the Jaehyung and Persian Revolution. My question is very simple, and the answer is maybe more, I think. But I want to mention about, I'll head over that one. You may know that the Persian Revolution is ideology and thoughts of communism, and is their strategy and action of the communists. Now those things will be happening in Korea and going on. President Trump knows that one. So that is not just communism's ideology. They against democracy, against America, more than against Christianity. We have a background of all of those in the United States. We are not. In this situation, we have responsibility in America and Korea because we are both countries have allies. We cannot stand by slander that their job, their works. This we have to remember both things. In that case, you mentioned about are you support President Trump to take care of it and overcome that one and overthrow that country regime in Korea. Lee Jae-myung is definitely, he is communist, he is socialist, he will be totalitarian, he hates America, he pro-Chinese. This is true. What should we do? How about you?
Thank you for the question. You know, we had the same problem here. President Obama and Obama's third term, President Biden, were very anti-Christian. And they were arresting their opponents, and they persecuted them through the IRS, through the courts. Look at what they did to grandmothers on January 6th that just walked into the Capitol innocently, didn't touch a thing, and walked out, or people that were even nearby and never went in. They persecuted them, put them in a terrible prison, took away their rights to see a lawyer for a time. The left does this. Your country, if he does do what you're saying he'll do, because we do know he's on the left, will suffer, just as we suffered in the United States. But we fought and we organized and we worked diligently to make a better future, a brighter future. South Korea is not over. South Korea can be a great, free country again. You can defeat this idea. You're all smarter about these issues than I am, so you get your heads together, make a plan, and then fulfill that plan. Make your goals and work toward them, and you will be successful.
Well, Lieutenant Colonel Chan Hong, you and I were in the initial roster of John Mills Special Election Team. Anyway, my question is, what if from the Apex meeting this coming October, Xi and Mr. Trump or President Trump, everything so went well? Okay, hey buddy, good to see you, and then he made a great deal out of meeting, right? So what would happen to all these efforts of young people or Korean Americans and Koreans fighting for, we call freedom or whatever they were fighting for? I don't think Mr. Trump or President Trump doesn't want to jeopardize maybe the possible deal he might come up with the Mr. Xi. So what's the predicament? What do you kind of expect out of the meeting coming Apex?
It's a great question, and nice to see you in person. Thank you for your service. I have to say this. Keep in mind, just as this gentleman said, President Trump's working on getting trade deals done. That is in his front of his mind to strengthen the U.S. economy. There are some things that will be put on the back burner, but they're still on the burner. So there will be a time for everything, but keep advocating. And you talked about not enough voices from South Korea in the U.S. and on the administration, and so increase your activity.
마지막 질문 하나 하겠습니다. Oh, all right. Sorry about that. After and then I'll get. I wasn't trying to be sexist. I just saw what in front of me.
Ambassador Sam, thank you very much. It was very honored to have you here. So everybody is really appreciated.
Thank you.
Currently, do you have a job opening? I want to work for you. I came from Tennessee. but we do not have much time in Korea. We all know that 99% of the country is occupied, taken by the left, extreme communist. So we are at a very critical time. We don't have time. When President Trump says something like political rhetoric, a lot of interpretation, fake news fabricated, and they make great deal out of it and make something toward their interest. And everybody is, especially people living in South Korea, brainwashed. They cannot get away from it because they protected their lives, jobs, and family. That's the only issue. We can raise a voice here, outside of South Korea. So, my question is very simple. Can you please advise South Korea very straightforward, simple word. Hey, stand up and fight against the communists. Please stand up. That's what we really need. That will really greatly mobilize South Korean patriot movement. People have been out there for many years, from President Park, impeached 10 years ago. Same situation. They have a strong fatigue out there. They cannot just, get away from job and then go to the street every day. They are peace-loving people. They cannot really do the damage like the leftists always do. We cannot assassinate people like that. We all know that we are peace-loving people, but we have a long-lasting fatigue. Please say, and I think you are at the right position. America First Policy Institute. I want to really work for you. I can stand up here, fight for the South. So please, can you help us? We know this is an ideological war. This is
also
a
spiritual war. Yeah.
Spiritual war. This is all about Jesus Christ. We all know that. He is the King. He is the Lord. So let's just stand up. That's all I'm asking.
This will be the last question, and then.
Okay, I am ready to say it in Korean because this is a really, really important issue. Okay, when this is so important question or issue for my life. That's I'm here, so I can speak English in good. When I get a little bit emotionally, I get not good in English. So I will rather to say speak in Korean. So would you mind, Mr. Michael Won, can you help me out? Sometimes I got blocked. My first question is, you don't have to answer to me all my questions as long as no. Okay, so when okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so just a couple of minutes. So
I'm sorry. I
have
죄송합니다. 위원님께서 2분 뒤에 회의에서 나가셔야 되기 때문에 여기서 마무리하도록 하겠습니다.
Thank you.
네, 칼라샌즈.
다 같이 박수 한번 더 크게 부탁드릴까요? 감사합니다. Thank you. 네, 저희가 저녁 식사하기 전에 몇 가지 안내 말씀이 있습니다. 먼저 여기 보시면은 아시고 빈자리가 나와 있죠. 저희 주변에 메릴랜드나 버지니아에 사시는 분들에 한해서 전화를 드려서 친구들에게 현장 등록 가능하니까 우리 전화기 선생님 보러 오시라고 다들 연락 부탁드립니다. 네, 그리고 저희 한글 트랜스레이터 통역 쓰신 분들 다 저기 앞으로 저기 왼쪽 앞에 갖다 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 저희가 그래야지 내일까지 다시 깨끗하게 소독해서 갖다 줄 수 있고요. 자, 그리고 한 가지 더 요청이 왔는데요. 다시 저희가 그 광고가 나겠지만 내일 아침에 프로테스트 하는 거 8시 15분에 여기 호텔에서 만나서 버스를 타고 디스크가 출발합니다. 근데 이거는 저희와 함께 연관이 있는 게 아니고요. 같이 다른 단체와 하는 거로 꼭 아시면 되겠습니다. 자, 그리고 저녁 식사는 다시 지금부터 7시까지 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
네, 그럼 나중에 또 오겠습니다. 네.
여기 통역